gym as well. I don't smell nice. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Melody.
Oh.
But I'll go through that in a second. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. I'll wait for Frank to Teams me. We'll be good to go. Are we good to go up there? Yeah. Right, bear with me a sec while this comes through. Oh, this one. Like this. Is that better? A bit more? Is that okay? Perfect. Okay, welcome everyone to round 2 of our candidate questions. We're going to hear from candidates for the roles of student trustee and education officer this afternoon. We're going to start with our candidate questions for student trustee. As a charity, the union is governed by its trustee board, and as a member organisation, the Students' Union has a 2/3 majority student membership of its board of trustees, with the full-time officer team and student trustees making 8 of the 12 places on the board of trustees. The remaining 4 positions are taken by external trustees who provide the board with expertise on various fields. Your candidates for this role are Melody, Liam and Harrison, so thank you very much for joining me. We're going to start with a short 2-minute opening speech, and I'm going to ask Melody to start first, if that's okay. Stay seated, that's fine.
Okay. Hi everyone, I'm Melody and I'm a second year natural science student. I'm also the current department rep for natural sciences, and I'm also the current president for the First Aid Society. So I have actually been keeping my eye out for the student trustee role for a while now, waiting kind of for the right time to go for it. And I was really pleased that kind of the role became available in the way that it did. So in terms of who I am and why you should vote for me, basically the shortcut is I have experience in lots of things around the university. I have worked with multiple different people before, and I've earned their trust, and I've proved results that has been able to change experiences for the better. And I've also got credits to show for that work that I've done. So, for example, I recently won an academic rep award for my work in the natural sciences department. But aside from that, I also think that you should want to vote for someone who you trust, who is passionate about the role, and who wants to represent everyone across the university in the key decisions that the union makes. And those 3 things are things I am deeply passionate about making sure that they happen. I want to make sure that there is a trustworthy appearance of the union and in how it's communicated. I want to make sure that everybody's represented in all different groups across the university in the union's decisions. And hopefully you can tell by my speech that I'm very passionate about all of this. So as student trustee, what I will pledge. The first thing is student-centred decisions. This may seem like an obvious one, but in a world where financial problems are growing, there's environmental problems, and the university is changing a lot of its things in the forms of CTP and stuff like that, and new laws and regulations are coming in, lots of things are changing. And I want to make absolutely sure that the decisions that the union makes for its students, for us, have the students at the centre of those decisions.
2 minutes there, Melody. Thank you very much. We'll move to Liam. Whenever you're ready.
Hello everyone, my name's Liam Wright. I'm a secondary economics student. Previously, I was the president of the Motorsport Society and did executive there for 2 years. And then now I am the vice fund manager of the investment fund on campus. So diving straight into it, I think the most important reasons of why you should vote for me is actually what I'm campaigning for. First of all is deeper financial transparency within the Students' Union. There's only one financial report put out once per year, and that's in the August after the year's ended. So if you disagree with something, you don't really have the opportunity to disagree with it. So I believe in more quarterly, maybe even monthly reports, but also more deeper financials around specific events. There are a lot of issues, as many people may know, with roses when the buses arrived, and also things like the Sugar House refurbishment, which I've not seen many people use as arcades. So you can't really disagree with it if you don't understand how much it costs, why they've done that, and there just isn't really that transparency there. Secondly is cost of living. One of our biggest issues, all the students I can imagine, is affording rent and most importantly affording food. I know plenty of people who have to make the decision between are they buying good food each week or are they paying their rent by the end of the month. And I think the student union should focus away from vanity projects, again, using Sugar House refurbishment as my example, and more on things like, can we actually bring Supper Club back? Or can we at least put more of a focus on things like the food pantries that are done in colleges, and also within the student union itself. And then finally, sort of expanding student voice. Sounds quite generic, but my main focus here is a greater degree of direct democracy. You can elect us on the points we say, but you don't necessarily know that we're actually going to go do them. And I think there should be more ability for the students to actually engage with that directly. What that may take the shape of, it could be individual votes on big topics, or it could be generally us producing more information about what we're actually doing, just so that you can hold us accountable of what we're doing. Otherwise, again, we could just do whatever we want.
Thank you, Liam. Do you want to pass the microphone to Harrison? Harrison, whenever you're ready.
Cheers, Jack. Hello, everyone. My name is Harrison Stewart. I'm a law of politics student originally, but I'm more widely known for being a full-time officer of the Students' Union. So originally I was Vice President Union Development, and now I serve as the Education Officer. When I'm not being an FCO of LUSU, I've been a president of one of our colleges and a president of one of our sports clubs. Trustee boards are made of experts. Trustee boards are made of accountants, lawyers, HR professionals, etc. And our Students' Union appoints trustees to our trustee board. Sorry, our Students' Union appoints students to our trustee board because we're experts on the student perspective. Students, us, we understand the perspective of ourselves and our peers, and that's why we're on there. And the best student trustees can sort of transform that perspective and experience into influencing key decision-making processes on the trustee board. And that's why it's your best interest to vote me as a trustee. For the past 2 years, I've been a professional representative with our Students' Union. I've campaigned and presented at national conferences, on national television, campaigning for your rights, representing your rights, and advocating for your viewpoints. More importantly than that, though, I spend my day-to-day life in board-level meetings, in senior committee-level meetings, talking and discussing about the things that you guys want and representing those to senior leaders, and that's exactly what I do on the trustee board. It's simply my bread and butter, and it's what I do almost every day now. We need this at the moment. You and I need this at the moment. We need representatives that are good at their jobs to be on the trustee board because the LUSU is going through a period of intense financial difficulty. Big decisions are being made about our lives and how we perceive the student experience. So whether you're part of a college JCR, a sport club, a society, a liberation forum, you really need someone in that room that knows how to utilize your viewpoints and put them to the senior leaders so that when these big decisions are being made, your viewpoint is at the very forefront of their minds. And for that reason, it's in all of our collective interest to vote me as trustee. Thank you.
Thank you, Harrison. We're now going to give the candidates an opportunity to present questions to the remaining candidates. For this, we'll go in the reverse order, sort of just done. So, Harrison, could you present your question to the remaining nominees?
Certainly, thanks, Jack. Independence is something that our trustee board has been striving for a long time. Independence from the university, the right to make our own decisions, essentially. And I just wanted to know what you'd like to do to ensure that our trustee board continues to be independent from our university.
I think that's really important. I do agree with the fact that at the end of the day, the move away is really a key thing because the university does give a lot of the funding, and at the end of the day, it gives it power to influence decisions. I think one of the most crucial things is going back to the sort of transparency discussion. It's really difficult to support a student union as a student body when you don't really know what they're doing. So I think really expanding the transparency and really expanding the connection of students will be vital. If you have more students supporting the Students' Union, it gives it more of a mandate to actually act independently and act on the views of the students. If there isn't interaction, the university simply can act as it wants to with the Students' Union.
Thank you, Liam.
Yeah, so I completely agree that independence is important. I think there's quite often a misconception that the university and the Students' Union are one and the same. And I think as a student trustee, it's really important to be able to distinguish ourselves and for students to know that actually we aren't this massive organisation that's mainly business focused and it's about numbers of students getting in. We're more about actually the welfare of students and how we care about students. So something that I would like to do that is to make sure that the decisions that we communicate are done in a professional way and are done so in the correct way where they don't necessarily always link with the university or they don't necessarily always follow the university's footsteps. I think it's really important that the Students' Union should be communicating what it's thinking about and what its priorities are to its students. And following the theme of transparency, everybody else, I think it's important that everybody knows exactly what we're doing and that we're not just like a ghost organisation, what we're actually doing and what we're doing to care about our students.
Very much. Cheers. Okay, Liam, if you'd like to ask a question, and then we'll go the same order, so Melody and then Harrison.
Right, so obviously one of the big things I think all three of us talk about in our manifestos is this idea of sort of representing what the student body wants. My direct action there is sort of talking a lot more about cost of living, giving sort of more exact things I want to put a campaign on. Just wondering for both of you, what does that look like to you? What does the main student problem sort of look like to you?
You'll go left first, sorry, Liam. Sorry. Our left.
Yeah, so in terms of what kind of campaigns I'd like to see, for the student trustees, we spend the majority of our time kind of sitting in the boards and help navigate decisions. So we don't necessarily start the campaigns. But in terms of things I would like the student to focus more on, I think at the moment there is not enough focus on the student community itself. So for example, from what I've heard this year, due to reasons, some ball will not be continued this year, which I think is a real shame because I think it's a really nice way to celebrate the end of academic year for students. You know, students work hard on the year. I think things like that should be prioritised over other things that the student union does. And I also think it's important to, as a student union, to make sure that it's not just about what our student trustees want, but also to make sure that we're listening to other students around the university and carrying out what's important to them as well, and rise with the changes in that and making sure that across all boards we're hitting all the points that we need to.
Thank you. Harrison?
Cheers, Jack. Yeah, so a really, really good answer there. I think my answer would be time poverty. So I know there's probably a lot of students either in the room or watching online that can relate to this, whereby you may work a part-time job or your studies are so intense that you actually don't have a lot of time to participate in societies or extracurriculars. And that's really, really difficult to have a fantastic student experience. You know, our Students' Union offers so much things to do at Lancaster, but actually if you're barred from entering those spaces, then it can make your time at Lancaster really difficult. So time poverty is something that myself as a full-time officer has seen, not only in Lancaster, but across the UK higher education sector in the last 2 years. What the SU can do about that in terms of financial support is limited, but what the SU can do is campaign the university and lobby the university to change its ways so that these students that are affected by time poverty are better off.
Thank you. Yes, and then Melody, if you'd like to present the question.
Thank you. So my question is, obviously, as student trustees, you want to make sure that when you help to the decision making, that you're representing multiple students across multiple different groups of the university and not just your own interests at heart. So my question was, how would you ensure that you are being fair across all groups and not just prioritising things you might be interested in or things that you've done before?
Okay. And Liam, if you'd like to go first.
Yeah, so I think it's a really good question. At the end of the day, you don't want to elect someone who doesn't represent your interests. I think sort of links back to what I said about bringing in more opportunity to student voice and more accountability for what we do. It's really critical because at the end of the day, you can object to that. I think there should be more opportunity to object to that because there's no way to really ensure that a student trustee does the actions you necessarily agree with. So allowing for that means that you can tell us what you disagree with, we can act on that, and if we continue to not, I think they should be able to get rid of us, to be honest. But yeah, so I think that's a really important way, just to add that line of communication. As someone in a society, president of the Motorsport Society previously, and now vice fund manager of the Gozal Fund, it's very, very difficult to get information at the Students' Union, and as a student in general, again, a lot of this information I'm hearing is either from people I'm friends of on the trustee board, or from people who've previously been on it, and it's just very, very difficult to find out information in general, so yeah.
Yeah, I think it's that's a bit loud. Yeah, I think it's a really, really good question. It's certainly something that I've thought about in the past 2 years being a full-time officer, how I can represent such a diverse range of people. Say, for example, as an undergraduate student, it's more difficult for me to represent the thoughts of the 25% postgrad people that we have here. So I've done a lot of reflecting, and I've actually been trained a hell of a lot on how I can represent the views of everyone. A lot of it really is simply talking to people outside of your friend group, talking to those that you might not interact with. And through 2 years of working at the SU full-time, I've found that actually I've found myself in networks that I wouldn't have ever existed had I have just been the student that I was before I entered the whole world of Student Union. So I exist across a plethora of different networks that I wouldn't have otherwise, and I can always speak to those sort of people, those that don't share the same characteristics or attributes that I do, and I can speak to those people and they can tell me what's going on in their world and I can best represent those. So like I said before, I exist across a plethora of places already, be it a college JCR background, sport club background, wider union political background. But I also exist in a lot of different networks that can actively influence the voices that I try and put forward to the trustee board. So yeah, that'd be my answer.
Thank you very much. Cool. Okay, we're now going to move to the opportunity for questions from the floor. These can be presented to the three candidates as a whole or to individuals. Are there any questions from the floor? Yeah, we'll go here. Frank's going to run with a microphone to you. Or walk, I guess.
I wanted to hand this to like all three of you guys. So similar to what you were saying about sort of like the clubs and the student union. Myself, I'm going to be president of Taekwondo next year and vice president of MMA. MMA is in the process of being affiliated, and there's a lot of like sort of like hot topics right now about the student union not taking any more societies for affiliation, whether that's due to budget or room bookings, we don't know. There's been little to no clarification on why MMA can't be affiliated. Is it health and safety? Is it kit? Is it room? Is it finance? We're pretty much being told, no, come back next year, try another time. Can you guys make any comments about society affiliations, what you do, about all of these societies trying to get affiliated? Like, what's your kind of take on this problem?
Okay, we'll go down the line, start with Melody, and we'll work our way down.
Thank you. Thank you for the question, lovely. So I've actually been in a very similar position to you because at the beginning of this academic year, myself and a group of students worked really hard to affiliate the Natural Sciences Society. And we did actually manage to, I think that was just before when the rumours kind of went there and they weren't going to affiliate any more societies. But if I'm honest, I think that's a real shame and I do strongly disagree with it. Yes, there is, financial changes and financial challenges, but I don't think we should be penalising societies that students might want to join. I think we need to be careful and be responsible of our finances about where we're going to put that money. And I also think it links in with the whole thing of, I think we need to handle things in a different way. If it's something that we don't want to do, I actually explain why that is, so it's not just, oh, you can't do it, because that's not good enough. You need to know why you wouldn't be able to do it. But I think we should be giving new societies the chance because, new societies, they bring in new ideas and they bring in new energy to the campus, which is something we constantly need. And nobody wants to see the same old boring societies day in, day out. And as part of growing the student union and growing the people within the student union, we need those new interests. So I would be 100% supporting societies who want to get affiliated.
Thank you. We'll move our way down.
Yeah, so sort of reaching out to that, I'm familiar with the issues of LUSU. When I was president of Motorsport, we're almost 250 person society. Despite the fact we're affiliated, we still find a lot of issues and a lot of paperwork, a bit of roses, a bit of funding, and generally clarity on that was a bit lacking, so I do understand the frustration. I think the big thing is, I'm not going to sit and say, oh yeah, I'll definitely vouch for affiliations to be reopened, because frankly, I don't know why they've been closed. But I do agree that you should be given a lot more clarity on that. I think it's really important that you're explained why that's the issue and maybe given a time frame when you could be affiliated. I understand how damaging it can be, especially with Freshers' Fair. I know a lot of people in kickboxing. I can imagine how many people probably want to be in MMA SOC and sort of the damage that not being at Freshers' Fair can do. So I do think you need some critical information on that, but also maybe some alternatives. If the financial assets aren't available to allow you to affiliate, what can we do to accommodate you to at least not disadvantage the society wider?
Yeah, so I work for the Students' Union, so I can tell you why they're not being affiliated. It's simply all, again, comes down to money. Not so much that we can't finance the societies, but staff capacity. So the Student Union simply does not have the capacity to, we already look after 200 student groups. If you're already juggling 200 plates and you want to add more on, it's the question of what you want to take off, which is equally as tough a decision as to close affiliations. I completely agree with what you're saying, this should be communicated more widely to students why we can't affiliate more societies. And again, actually, this comes down to the university. If the university, for example, was to increase its block grant, they increase the amount of money that they give to the Students' Union, then actually the SU would be able to affiliate more societies. So the union's funded by this block grant, this bit of money that the university gives us. And unfortunately, that doesn't sway enough or doesn't give us enough money to actually pay more staff to affiliate more societies. So as much as the SU would love to affiliate more societies, it's in our best interest as much as the students. The university doesn't give us enough money.
Thank you, Harrison. Any more questions from the floor? We'll go here first.
Hi. So you're all very experienced candidates, but I'd like to know, what is one achievement that you think sets you apart from the others within your experience?
Okay, we're going to go the other way this time.
Oh, I should always say that I made the sugar bus free. That always gets smiles. But my biggest, I'm not going to go with a full-time officer. I'm going to go with my biggest achievement as a trustee. So I led the project to change the union's strategy. So for a number of years, the union was strategy-less, essentially. So it didn't have much financial direction or strategic direction, and I came in and thought that was really silly. So worked with the chief executive officer to make sure that we have a strategy now. So that helps set us basically a set of values, so that when the university asks us to do loads of things, we can say no to things. So that we have things that we follow, and our staff have things that they can follow that are really important to students. It stops staff and officers from working on things that you guys that we don't care about. So a lot of things that you wouldn't have liked about the union stopped when I influenced the strategy, and a lot of things that you do like about the union kept going or have now started since introducing that strategy. Importantly, from a trustee perspective, it also gave us financial direction. So because we could say no to doing certain things and say yes to doing more things, we knew where we were going financially. So that's helped us be much more financially sustainable going forward, which will help us in years and years and years to come.
Yeah, really good question. I think my biggest achievement, it's less related directly to these roles and more around these roles. So prior to uni, I come from a very poor background. Multiple times in my life, I've been homeless. It's a background very uncommon at university. A lot of people at least come from like a middle-class family with some financial stability. And I think my biggest achievement is going for A-levels, working 30 hours a week, coming to university, getting a part-time job, being financially stable, and then now running societies. I have an internship lined up, which I'm quite excited for. So sort of starting that professional career and breaking out of that cycle of what the bottom of poverty can really, really look like in this country. But I think from the trustee perspective, it's really important because I'm not running for this role because I want something on my CV. I'm running for it because I have a genuine passion for the cost of living issues, for the transparency issues. I know what it's like to sort of come into this and feel a bit isolated from the community as well. So overall, I think it shows as well. At the end of the day, I've got the dedication to do it. I already run another society, have an internship. I've more than got the passion to be able to do the role.
Thank you. Lottie?
So that's a really interesting question. And actually, it's a really difficult one for me to answer because generally, whilst I've been at university, any achievements that has been given to me is mostly when I've worked with a lot of other people, and it's actually been like a massive team working on one project together. Might be that I've led that project or I've been a key member in it, but I wouldn't want to say that it was just my achievement because that wouldn't be fair on the other people who worked hard on it. I would say in terms of what I think my biggest achievement is, it would probably be I think it would actually be the society affiliation, mainly because we had to come back from a previous failure. So Natural Science Society had previously tried to create themselves and get set up, and due to the funding, due to the student experience, it just wasn't able to happen. It never actually did happen. And I think one of the biggest changes we've had is we've gone from that to now being affiliated, just having our first exec handed over now, which is really great to see. And I think that's one of my biggest achievements because it's something that I didn't think I'd be doing when I came to university. I didn't envision myself like setting that society up. I thought, I didn't envision myself seeing that, but it's something that took a lot of energy and hard work into it. So I think the page I ended up submitting to LUSU was like a 39-page document about why we should be affiliated from like an 11-page template. And I think the dedication that I showed to that project to get it affiliated, to make sure that natural sciences students aren't left out, and again, the thing about making sure that no groups are left out of the community, I think I was really proud of that.
Thank you. Well, we'll take one more question from the floor. Yeah, at the top here, Frank. Yep.
Right, I have kind of individual questions for you. Is that all right? So, Melody, you mentioned about wanting to get students more involved in decisions. What particular methods are you going to implement to ensure that those decisions do have students at the heart of them? Yeah,
so a key thing that I've always thought about the university since I've joined is that A lot of things happen, and people state they happen, but I don't believe students are properly involved in those processes. And thank you for your question, Lucas, up there. So in terms of what I would like to do, I think one of the more daunting reasons that prevent people is that people think they have to be in some kind of leadership role or some kind of thing to do with LUSU or something like that to be able to make a change. And I don't realise actually just their voice and just their opinions below make a change. And I don't believe that there is enough encouraging just the ordinary person that might not necessarily want to be into a leadership position, but does want to make a change at the university. So I would like to open up some kind of online forum where people can make suggestions and can put themselves forward even though they aren't in those positions.
These are two very brief questions for Liam. You mentioned previous ties to Lancaster Motorsport, and while I think the post was subsequently removed, I think Lancaster Motorsport initially made a post endorsing you as a trustee candidate. Are you able to make any comments on that? Were you involved in it? Was it something that society decided to do by itself? Obviously, you mentioned like transparency, and just, I was wondering, would you be able to give some transparency on the issue?
No, of course. First of all, do apologise for it. So I'm very good friends with the new exec. A lot of them on their personal accounts reposted my stuff. It was my bad. I didn't tell them to not put it on the account. I didn't tell them to put it on the account to begin with, but I should have told them beforehand. They were trying to be polite and put it on, and then Frank dropped me an email, and I noticed it was on there. Second I did, asked them to drop it. So yeah, do apologise for that.
No, absolutely fine. And my second question, obviously with strained financial situations, you have mentioned you want to increase the amount of reports, quarterly reports rather than annual financial reports. Are there going to be any constraints on actually being able to produce that without significantly increasing workload on the current finance team at the SU? How do you hope to work around that with constraints on people and their time?
One of the questions I'm actually probably more better suited to. I work in finance, I run the investment fund. This is sort of my bread and butter. Personally, I don't think it will. At the end of the day, I'm not asking that we write full audited reports. I want ideally reports in layman's terms, even if it's just giving a fact of this costs that. You don't have to go into loads of detail about how depreciable is that, how much are we losing in the next 5 years. But just to give students that quick viewpoint, personally, I'm willing to help with that as well, as it is an initiative that I want to promote. So I personally don't think it will add that much of a strain. And also, if, again, me wanting to get involved with it, I feel like it doesn't really add too much of a burden to where it outweighs the benefit of the transparency.
Okay, thank you. And finally, Harrison, your campaign has been quite centred, at least from my opinion and my perspective, centred on your experience, as you are extremely experienced, whereas the other two candidates have also implemented and shown more about specific policies they want to implement. As a brief overview, are there any particular policies you are looking to introduce as student trustee?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. The reason my campaign's more around myself as a person is that a trustee is inherently appointed because of the person they are. Like I said before, lawyers, accountants, professionals of certain disciplines and backgrounds are appointed. It's kind of a misunderstanding maybe that trustees have these policies and things that they carry through. So that's why I'm a trustee of 4 charities. I understand how it works, and it's not really what a trustee would do. If I was to introduce a policy, it would perhaps be something about the strategy that's already happened. So basically putting in place safeguards to make sure that a strategy, when our current one lapses in a number of years, that a new strategy is made. So whether you're part of a sports club, a society, college JCR, Liberation Forum, anything, any one of those things, or you're a student and you partake in nothing, basically that your rights and your voice is always going to be heard, and a strategy that reflects that, so that the union isn't straying away from what you believe in or what you want. The union's always going to stay on track to what you have. The strategy that we have now is brilliant, but we need to make sure there's another one coming in the next couple of years. So that's probably the closest thing to a policy I'd put in.
Thanks, Harrison. We've got enough time for one more question, if there is one, for general to the floor. We'll go at the back, actually. We'll diversify our questioners. That's all right.
Thanks. I'm not sure if this is cheating a little bit because I'm behind the camera. Even compared to other SUs, LUSU struggles with its financial independence. So much of its money comes from university funding. The university also exerts control over pay structure and hiring. The few commercial ventures which LUSU has are generally not profitable. It's recently been announced that LUSU Shop will be closing because it's not profitable. Is the financial independence of LUSU something which concerns you as candidates, given these are tricky times for the university, they're likely to be making cuts which might not be in the student interest? Will that affect the ability of the SU to stand up to the university and represent students? And if you think it is a problem, how would you propose to make LUSU more financially independent?
We're going to go Liam, Harrison, then Melody.
A great way. Yeah, I completely agree with you. At the end of the day, LUSU's independence from the university is really critical, because if the university has an agenda that we don't agree with, we financially rely on them. It's quite difficult to oppose that. Again, completely agree with sort of the commercial venture, sorry. Clearly, LUSU shop, good heart. Clearly, financially wasn't the best project. But other projects like Sugar House and like the housing company that LUSU owned seem to be doing considerably better. I think going into the future, like Harrison sort of touched on, it's the overall strategy that the union's taking. I think at the end of the day, running a shop, you can't challenge the benefits that you get from a large company running a shop that can be willing to take losses, whereas, as I'm sure you may be aware, LUSU shop, like veg, fruit, meat, was quite expensive there compared to shops in town. So I do think it's just constantly refining that strategy within the preview of what the union currently has and what maybe further commercial expansions we can have.
Really, really great question. And I'm glad that I was sort of thinking what you're thinking and thinking what other students are thinking, and that independence is really crucial, which is why I asked my fellow candidates about how important they think independence is. It's absolutely massive. And to answer one of your questions about, am I worried about the university's struggling financial situation and what that means for the union? Yeah, of course I am. So, like I said before, we're funded by this block grant of the university, and now if they're making cuts, obviously there's going to be cuts to our block grant, which is really, really scary. But exactly like you just said then, strategy is crucial. Firstly, strategy is crucial, and like I said, I was sort of instrumental in making sure that the strategy that we have now works and keeping the union afloat because of that strategy. But the other thing actually is having really strong trustees. So our trustees sometimes meet with the university executive, so our vice chair of the board consistently meets with the vice chancellor. Basically not being a yes man and really standing up to the university, and when they're making these cuts to the trustee board's finances, actually saying, no, you can't do this, and lobbying and advocating for the students' needs, which again is what I've been doing for the past 2 years. I meet with these people all the time. I annoy and frustrate these people all the time because I'm constantly begging them or shouting at them to improve our student experience and give us more funding. So if you're worried, like I am, about the union's finances being cut by the university and you want someone to stand up for that, then I've been doing it for the past 2 years.
Thank you.
Yeah, really great couple of questions there. So kind of echo what the other guys are saying. I am also worried about LUSU's finances. I think we all are at this point. I do think that independence is needed, because the longer we continue to rely on the university, the longer the financial problem is less in our control about what we can do with it. However, I don't think that just because we want to be independent from the university, that we should try and completely cut all financial ties to the university. I think it's important that we do still encourage university. I think that actually there is more things that the LUSU can be doing. I don't personally think I've seen a load of action that's obvious to us students that the LUSU are trying to lobby the university to retain their money they give them more money. I actually think we aren't doing a good enough job at that. I think as student trustees, it's really important that we can help to make those decisions about standing firm what we believe in actually saying. At the end of the day, yes, you're the university, but your students and their welfare and their experience is a lot down to LUSU. And I think we should be more appreciated in that, and they should be able to give us more money based on that. But yeah, similar to Harris, I'm not afraid to put up a good fight in that regards and do it properly. And to make sure that the financial responsibility of the union is making sure the decisions are based around the students, are done in the correct way, and also making sure that we are standing up for what we believe in that regards.
Thank you. Would you like to ask your question? Round off the night. Well, for these candidates at least.
I don't want to keep going on about like sports and societies, because that's not what LUSU's here for. But I feel like at the moment, as someone who's been involved with societies and sport for quite a while now, there's a lot of distrust around LUSU. There's a lot of feeling of, I don't want to say incompetency, but there's a lot of feelings of we kind of expect things to not get done, expect things to not be, expect emails to not be sent, right? And having to like chase up things in person quite a lot, especially experience when Taekwondo got moved to sport, there was no announcement from it actually to like, is here to tell us as a kickboxing exec member, to tell us that we became a sport. So what can you guys say about like clarifying, rectifying this distrust that a lot of us have within LUSU, like LUSU sport? Is there anything you can say about that?
We're going to go Liam, Melody, and Harrison.
Again, sort of echoing my response to your question earlier, I've gone through a lot of the same, especially with Roses, a lot of issues of being a point scoring team for motorsport. We've been doing it for 3 or 4 years and we're still struggling to get access to that. And also generally responses, again, we've waited weeks sometimes for responses that we maybe need on the day, especially around good events like open days when we're doing them, or with Freshers Fair. Prime example, we have a sim that we put up, massive issues trying to get electricity for that, despite the fact we promised it. But no, I think it's really important, again, sort of going back to my idea that the union should put out more reports, even not just financial, but also from the trustees, so that we can actually clarify to you, this is why what's going on. Even if it's just a status report, it doesn't have to be, we've done this, even if it's just, this is how the runnings of it's going. Because at the end of the day, I know how frustrating it is to get no response. And while I can't sit here and promise that that'll be increased, obviously it's partly a staffing issue, there at least needs to be a degree of communication that gives you some security in what your society is doing, but also just something to fall back on if maybe an email's missed or maybe there's a query that maybe the meeting's a bit pushed behind for.
So it's a really good question. I've been behind the curtain for a couple of years now, working with not working with our finance function, but still as an employee of our SU. To understand how hard it is for them, but a bit of context for you. Before I was part of the Students' Union, I ran a campaign against the Students' Union as president of Cartmel College because I was so angry with their processes. So if you felt you hate the SU, don't worry, I've been there. I'm president of our lacrosse club currently, and I deal with our finances, and I agree that sometimes it can take a hell of a long time, more than it needs to. There is actually a lot of software that exists to streamline this process. There's a lot happening at the moment. We're trying to bring society and sport club bank accounts in-house. And as a trustee, it's our job to hold the executive, including the finance manager, to account. And as someone who is president of a sports club, president of one of our student communities, that is one of the first things I'd be asking the CEO and the finance manager to be doing, to making sure that process is streamlined. I don't want to have to order something. I don't want to have to order a stack of cones, for example, and it takes 3 weeks to come for a training session I have on Thursday. I'm sure in all of your own capacities you can relate to that somehow. Take the cones out. So that would be one of the first things I do as a trustee, because it relates to my student experience and also it relates to a hell of a lot of yours. So yeah, I completely understand where you're coming from.
Thank you. So yeah, similar to the other guys, I can completely get where you're coming from. I've been president of 2 societies at my time at university, and if I'm completely honest, I don't remember saying much nice about the LUSU during that time. We do wait on them a lot for responses. And it tends to be that we'll have like one session where they give us all the information they feel is necessary, and you don't really hear much from them for a while until they pop back up again. So I completely agree with you. I actually think it's a really poor thing, and one of the reasons why I wanted to become a student trustee was to try and induce positive change and actually change the way that happens. One thing I think leads to this is that there doesn't really seem to be any kind of policy or commitment from the LUSU that they give societies that says what their intentions are and says what they will do. You know, when you get affiliated, for example, they'll say, oh, we'll give you this and we'll give you that. But actually, there's never really a particular commitment on, we are responsible, we will communicate with you on time. We'll make sure that your finances are done on time so that you're not being delayed or you're not having other issues. I think it would be really important to help navigate decisions to introduce policies and introduce ways where that communication is the most solid it's ever been. I think the communications need to be more professional when the decisions are made. And most importantly, I think that at the end of the day, LUSU, it's not just the societies that have responsibility, they have responsibility as well. I think they need to be kept to that through policies, through contracts even. I've often thought of having contracts with LUSU and the society where they have to give their promises as well, because I think it's poor how it's currently done, so I'd like to see that improve.
Thank you very much. Okay, that concludes our candidate questions for the candidates for student trustee. Thank you very much to Melody, Liam and Harrison. Voting opens tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. All right. tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. We're going to take a short break now, and then we'll hear from candidates for Education Officer. So thanks, guys. That blank look you gave me when I... Okay, we're now going to continue our candidate questions evening to candidates for the role of Education Officer. The Education Officer is the lead student representative on academic and related issues concerning the development of the undergraduate, postgraduate tour and postgraduate research experience to the university. They focus on education policy development and implementation, quality assurance and enhancement, learning support, facilities and resources, future academic strategy and tackling inequalities within academia. They must understand the academic structural differences between PGT and PGR students and the issues they face which are different to those of undergraduates. The Education Officer facilitates and supports the work of academic representatives, acting as the lead officer for the recruitment, training, development and promotion of academic reps, including lead and faculty reps. Your candidates for this role are Liz, Ewan and Ariana, and we're going to hear their 2-minute opening speeches, starting with Liz. So whenever you're ready. And you can go ahead.
Hi everyone, my name is Liz. I'm a final year Politics, International Relations and Management student. My top 3 priorities include students and quality of education at the centre of the CTP, a full review of the academic rep system, and developing flexible timetable options to allow students to have part-time jobs during the cost of living crisis. I then have 5 additional priorities. So that's Wednesday afternoons off, the traffic light AI system having more clarity, so being more dynamic and clearer, especially regarding the amber category, and also to be more inclusive of students with ILSPs. 3-day self-certification of extensions to enhance student well-being, diversification of assessment types, and finally advocating for students regarding government policies. So my experience is primarily within the Kickboxing Society. I was previously vice president and have just finished as president. I have learned leadership, collaboration. I have been able to manage operations, as well as bigger projects and events. I also have experience as an ambassador and as well with an internship in HR at a custodian bank. So I know that my experience is practical and tried and tested as transferable skills. I also have evidence for what I'm capable of. So we went from 12 to over 90 members in the Kickboxing Society this academic year alone. And we had the first ever Sugar Fight Night, which had over 500 people in attendance, turning over a profit for the students, which then went back into the SU. As a result of our work with the Sugar Fight Night and the Women's Plus Awards, we won the Student Engagement Award from LUSU Sports, which was a huge privilege to have that recognised. So it's something that I know that I can carry forward into being education officer, and that I am able to deliver on the promises. Let's get Liz laugh learning.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
Okay. Ewan, whenever you're ready.
Hi guys, I'm Ewan. I'm a final year maths student and I want to be your next education officer. During my time at university, I've thrown myself into a variety of different aspects of student life. I've been an academic rep, I've been a faculty rep, I've sat on Senate and Union Assembly, I've been society president and I've sat on societies committee. Through all these things, I've learned the crucialness of working productively with people and building up the networks with whoever you work with, whether that's SU, union, uni staff, whoever it is. There's always the opportunity to build those relationships that will help you further down the line. I've built those up over these past 4 years, and I'm now ready to be using them all to better these roles. Yeah, I've sat on Senate and Union Assembly, representing students both through academics and through societies. I've been involved in high-level meetings with executives, senior academics, and decision makers throughout the uni throughout these 4 years, acting through most of those to the side of an FTO. I'll to continue Harrison's work pushing for student involvement in CTP and continue into pushing into his involvement into the review panels for the modules reviews for modules that maybe haven't been transformed as well as they could be. I want to do this alongside pushing very heavily for free Wednesday afternoons. I think through CTP and the condensing of modules through there, I think it's the best opportunity we've had in recent times to achieve that. And I also want to work alongside my main aim of empowering academic reps to argue for their course needs. As an education officer, I'll oversee dozens of departments. I won't know what's best for each department, but the academics reps will. I want to empower them to do the best for their course mates.
Yeah, thank you very much. You want to pass the microphone over? Whenever you're ready.
Hi, my name is Ariana Dell. My pronouns are she, her, and I am a third-year Politics and International Relations student. A bit about me, I'm currently a student trustee for LUSU, and I have been a very active member of my college. I've had multiple roles on the JCI exec, and I've been involved in college sports since the beginning of university. I'm also a very involved member of the theatre group here on campus. So some of my manifesto points, well, my main 4 is number 1, to ensure that accessible quality resources are available online, and this includes recorded lectures. Number 2, to start department open days for when students have to choose their modules, and this would be a great opportunity to get academic reps involved. Number 3 is to make sure that there are clear communications about CTP that will be taking place soon to ease the transitions for students moving from a 3-term to 2-term timetable. And this would include signposting, keeping students updated in real time, and also to prioritise transparency. And number 4 would be to support Women's Plus students in male-dominated subjects. I'm not proposing that an entire culture in society will be changed in 1 year of the role. However, there is progress to be made. There is a clear gender divide and gap between the different modules and subjects that are chosen. And I think with direct conversations and engagement with Women Plus students in these subjects, we can make progress and we can offer the support that is needed for them.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Keep the microphone. We're going to go for the cross-candidate questions. So, Aaron, if you could present your questions to the rest of the candidates.
Yeah, so I just wanted to, almost a bit of an opportunity, which manifesto point do you think in your own manifestos would be the hardest to achieve? Why do you think this, and how would you overcome that challenge?
Okay. Ewan, do you want to answer first?
That's an excellent question. I think the bit in my manifesto that would be really the hardest to achieve is the free Wednesday afternoons through CTP.
anyone who's been paying attention to any sort of societies, sports, education officer over the past forever knows they've been arguing for this, and they've had a small breakthrough this year of giving some students some level of some prioritisation for some switching of the modules and modules this year. It's not been much, but through CTP, with the condensation of modules through there, this is probably the best and maybe one of the last opportunities we have to fully entrench Wednesday afternoons and getting the uni to follow their own policy on giving us the Wednesday afternoons off that we will have. I think it's achievable. I think the scheduling issues are achievable. It's just making the university understand that it's something that students truly want to happen, and it's something that the union will keep on fighting and arguing for. And if we ensure that, it's got a good chance.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Yeah, so definitely an excellent question. For me, my manifesto, the most challenging by far is definitely developing flexible timetable options for part-time jobs. Other universities have trialled this, where they're a lot smaller. De Montfort University is bigger than us by about 10,000, and they have also trialled options. This is definitely something that's really challenging with the diversity that we have amongst our students and amongst the courses that we offer. However, I think just because it's challenging, you shouldn't shy away from it, and you should look into it as an option, especially as it's something that can make university far more accessible for a lot of students who are working class or severely affected by the cost of living crisis. It can impact student well-being, and it can allow them to focus on their studies more. But yeah, there's no shying away from the fact that it is my most challenging policy.
Thank you. Okay, Ewan, would you like to pose your question to the candidates?
A very large part of the role of education officer is managing and working within the academic rep system. What first-hand experience do you have within the academic rep?
Okay, we're going to go Liz first. Thank you.
So I have no experience with working in the academic rep system. However, if I didn't believe that I was capable of learning the complex systems, I would not put the student body at the mercy of my incompetence. I have a lot of experience in other things, and I have been able to transfer those skills over. So it's something that I'm personally not worried about. Could it help? Yes. But again, if I didn't believe that it's something that I'm capable of, it's not something that I would risk other people with the problems of.
Thank you. Ariana?
Thank you. I've also not had any experience firsthand with the academic prep system. I've had friends and housemates and course mates who have been an academic rec before, and they have ranted to me before about the position, so I've heard about it. But I also think there is some value on having a fresh pair of eyes on the system and hearing what other people have said to me from a second-hand perspective of, oh, they don't feel like they're doing enough, they don't feel like their voices are being heard. One of my manifesto points for Department Open Days will be a great opportunity to get the academic reps involved. And I also have quite an overall knowledge of LUSU, which I think is quite invaluable, coming from a student trustee, and also policy making, which is a really big part of the role. I think my pros can outweigh the fact that I've not had any first-hand experience.
Thank you. And Liz, ask a question.
Yeah, so the CTP focuses on education, but in what ways do you want to advocate for student well-being alongside the implementation of the CPT?
Okay, Ariana, I'll go to you first.
Thank you. Yeah, one of the ways that I want to prioritise well-being is one of my manifesto points, supporting women plus students in male-dominated subjects. I know that's not directly related to CTP, but it's got an overall prioritising well-being from an academic standpoint for a group of students on campus. There's also the accessible resources to be made online. And yeah, CTP is just a really big change. We need to make sure that the communications are there for students to make sure that it doesn't become a stressor it's meant to allow students to have a better student experience. There should be a reading week as proposed on the website. They call it a consolidation week, and that will be great for students, but there's also behind the scenes of supporting other students and communicating with them, which I think is really important.
Thank you.
So yeah, I think one of the main challenges with CTP and the wellbeing is the sheer confusion for first and some second year students this year. Their degree and how their entire university experience in the year works will change, and that will be uncomfortable and nervous and a massive stress for a lot of students who know they've gone from modules that have been taught for decades with experienced lecturers to modules that are the first time being taught. I think that the sheer change and the stresses for that is going to be quite difficult, and I think a key part of implementing it and for the wellbeing is focusing on the students who have the ILSPs and making sure they can be fully impacted with it. I have an ILSP. It's been quite impacted by some of the changes to the modules, even when they've been not even close to the same magnitude as the transformation that CTP is going to have. I think through pushing the clear communications and clear planning, not just to students, but to academics. The CTP is a program that's largely being pushed by university management, not by the academics themselves, who are in some cases more annoyed than the student body is about CTP. If we manage to push that through and get the communications going out from management to us and the lecturers who will be lecturing our courses, I think that will remove a great deal of the stresses for the students.
Thank you very much. We'll now move to questions from the floor. Frank's going to grab the microphone to stroll around again. These can be questions for specific candidates or the candidates in general. So any questions? Okay, we're going to go back right first, please, Frank, to Melody.
Thank you. So as a department rep, I'm very heavily involved in the rep system, and also stuff to do with CTP and stuff like that. And one thing that a lot of our reps have noticed is that CTP seems to be copying other universities more than focusing on what's best for their students. But also it tends to not really involve students or in the ways that I think they should do. And it has taken a lot of effort, I know, for Harrison to campaign for CTP to involve students in any amount. So my question is kind of how would you handle that CTP, and how do you handle making sure that the students' voices are heard in such a tough environment where the university are very clear on ploughing ahead with this concept?
Thank you. I take it that's a question for each candidate. Cool. All of them, yeah. Okay, we're going to go you and Ariana and then Liz.
So, first thing I can say, I agree with you. The CTP is definitely a system that's been pushed through by the management for condensing, simplifying, and making it more affordable for the university to run. It's not been pushed through for academic performances. It's not been pushed through to improve the student experience. It's been pushed through as a cost-cutting measure with a veneer of transformation over the top. And as part of one of the cost-cutting, they have cut the student engagement from it. Now, the first year of CTP will essentially be approved and sent through, and the modules will be approved by the time we start our terms. The impact we'll be able to have on the first year of the CTP modules in 26-27 is going to be incredibly limited, if at all. The strongest way we can have an impact and get the student voice heard is to force student perspective and student voice into the module review panels that will be happening afterwards, when the university has already privately admitted to faculty members and staff that a good amount of the modules that are being pushed through CTP will need urgent review. And by pushing the student voice onto those panels, we can ensure that the modules that have been worst affected can be brought up to not only acceptable, but a good standard, by including what students want and have struggled with in that module.
Thank you for the question. With CTP, it is going to happen. There's no way to reverse it. They're already in the stages of planning and development. So the priorities would be to make sure that students and academics and PG students who are in that weird middle of both being student and a teacher in some capacities, to make sure that they are being talked to directly about this. And I know that's through academic reps. However, from my second-hand experience, from what people have told me, they feel like they don't really get involved as much. And I think the roles of the panel, including the students, was a great step. How much they were actually listened to by the institution itself is in question, and I think that points to a bigger issue of a disconnect between institution and students. And that's definitely something that I would want to advocate for, make sure that it's reinforced, that relationship there, and that we are paying to be here, we're paying for an education, and we deserve to get the best and do the best that we can given the resources that they give us, which includes the whole CTP position. Yeah.
Thank you. Liz?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So from my perspective, I think it's about holding and increasing the pressure that has already been put on the university. So obviously Harrison's done a really good job with that, and there are paid opportunities, which I can't imagine the battle that must have been to get that through. I think it's about keeping that momentum up and keeping that pressure on. Regarding pressure, the university has a TEF gold standard. They've written that on the very top of the CTP page, and they are going to want to keep that standard. So they do have that element of pressure on themselves to maintain the awards that they have. I think increasing the voices of academic reps, so as a student who's not a rep, I think there's a disconnect between my voice and the reps' voices, and then from the reps and what we've sort of heard from them, they feel like their voices are getting lost in it as well. So by enhancing the academic rep system and keeping that pressure on, I think that should be a good way to keep student involvement sort of on the university's neck.
Okay, thank you. Another question from the floor. While we're over there, Frank, we'll go for Harrison, and then we'll come to the other side, and then we'll go back again.
Hi. So for the past couple of years, the incumbent education officer has always had something that they've focused on sort of outside of academic affairs, or at least they've applied it to academic affairs. So a couple of education officers before me really focused on inclusion. And for myself, it was environmental sustainability, and I call this sort of a passion project. What's your passion project outside of academia that you would, say, take into the role and focus on in the role?
We're going to go Liz, Ariana, and then Ewan.
Yeah, great question. Thank you again. So one of my policies is about the traffic light AI system and making it clearer, especially for students with ILSPs. So for disabled students is and making everything better for them is definitely a passion project of mine. I'm neurodiverse myself. I have an ILSP myself, and I know that the university has shifted quite a lot of things recently. So for example, the transition team last year was merged with a different team, and a lot of autistic and neurodivergent students felt as if their support was being taken from them. And I think that that's something really difficult, especially for a lot of vulnerable students like myself. So because of my sort of personal diagnoses and you know, the way that I empathize with my friends, it would really be trying to increase the voices for neurodivergent and other disabled students.
Thank you. Ariana?
Thank you for the question. Definitely what I am most passionate about is advocating for the rights of Women Plus, and that does come through in my manifesto, and I'd include that under inclusivity. But that is really, really a passion project. It's something that I'd be very excited to do. There'd be a research period looking at the differences in attendance and enrollment between different subjects and modules between Women Plus students and Men Plus students, and analysing that and creating a policy paper. And it sounds a little bit boring, but to me it's really, really exciting, and I'd love to do it. And that's just something I've always been really passionate about, though, advocating for Women Plus and making sure that support and trying our best to not change the culture, because that is impossible to do in such a short amount of time, but to at least point to issues within the culture, make them apparent, and make sure that voices are heard. So, yeah.
Thank you.
I'm going to go with a bit more of a curveball approach. I've always been very much financially numbers-minded, hence my degree. So I'd be really looking and hoping to be one of the directors, because as well as being an FTO, we are also trustees, and there are some of the FTOs do become directors of the Sugar House and used to be Central, and kind of have some more of the involvement with the financial management side of that. I think making sure the union has a solid financial basis will help its independence, and will also help if we can have the money that's independent from the university. We can spend that on exactly what students want it spent on. It won't be like a prescribed grant from the university says, you can have all this money, but we're going to tell you how to spend it all. If we have our own money through efficient, profitable businesses and efficiency within LUSU, that opens up so many more opportunities for the union to help with what students want, rather than having to go cap in hand to the university saying, please, we want this. We can help future FTOs and future student leaders be able to say, no, we want this, we are doing it.
Thank you, Ewan. Cool. Okay, we're going to go over here, please, Frank.
So there's been a lot of talk of academic reps from all of you, and Ewan especially. I wanted to give a question to all of you, but give a bit of context to it. So as a fine arts student, we have academic reps. They were chosen by us. We have about, I think, 3 this year in a class of 60. And the biggest issue that our class as a whole has had is printing money. As fine arts students, we print a lot. So we'll be printing a lot of just images, like text, documents. We print a lot, and we are given £1 of printing credit for, I believe it's either for a year or like the whole 3 years. And as someone who's friends with people in other departments like psychology, law, literally any other department, they don't use their printing credit. So something we went to our reps for and pushed quite heavy was, we need more money for printing, especially because we have to source all of our materials ourselves, which is a huge financial burden on myself and other people that we've expressed about. And our academic reps' voices got lost. So they tried to push it, and the Leica department went, it's nothing to do with us, sorry. And we got no substantial feedback, we got no reassurance, we didn't get anything about it. So when you guys, and you, and especially when you talk about enhancing the academic rep system, can you expand that more? Like, what does that look like to you? What does that mean, like, enhancing? Can you give us some more detail about that?
Do you want to hear from all 3 candidates on the same question?
Yeah, all 3
Yeah,
candidates.
we'll start with you in there.
So first of all, that's ridiculous. I remember in my first year as a maths student, I could put my name down on a sheet and I would get the entire bundle of 200 plus pages of lecture notes printed out for me with no consideration or anything. If I could get £1, that's ridiculous. So when I talk about the enhancing and empowering the academic reps, I'll give you an example. During my first year, when I was the faculty rep, I worked quite closely with Gaia, the VP Ed at that time. There was an issue within the chemistry department, I think it was at the time, about module enrollment and the lecturers and the switching between that. The academic reps at that point had been going, it had been a consistent thing in the chemistry department for at least 2 years, and they'd gotten nowhere with it with their lead reps. I rocked up to a meeting with their academic staff along with Gaia, and you'd be surprised how quickly the lecturers changed their mind of what used to be this impossible thing to do was actually quite trivial and was solved the next week. That's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about empowering the academic rep system. I understand that as an education officer, I will never understand the ins and outs of every course, of every department, of what every student needs. But when the academic reps come to me and saying, this is the issue, we are getting stuck, I can throw my full weight behind those reps, and it's surprising how quick you do forget when you're looking at LUSU with the typical bad image that it has. FTOs do get listened to, in some cases, quite a bit. And departments, when they know they're doing things wrong, don't like the scrutiny. And having an FTO breathing down the neck of, why are you doing this, why are you doing this, why are you doing this, is the scrutiny that they don't want. And it's the avoidance of that that can, and the kind of light that brings in, that can really empower the student reps to do what they've wanted to do.
Okay, we'll go this way around, sorry.
So yeah, thank you for your question.
Sorry, I think that's me rather than you.
So that is absolutely ridiculous. That as a
Creative student. Okay, as a creative student, you are sort of having £1 to do all of your printing. I think sort of a case of equity over equality is all students get £1, but some people need more and some people are never going to use it. So it'd be definitely sort of looking into how that works between the different courses, which is where the reps come into play. So for me, I would want a review of the academic rep system. With it, I'm not trying to uphaul it or reinvent the wheel with it. It's more getting opinions from reps and from departments as well as the student body, and then having an evidence-based approach to try and improve it in as many ways as possible. That's just marginally. So for me, I think it would be transparency as well as accountability. There is an academic rep newsletter, I believe, that goes around, but this is not accessible to the student body. Whether it's in all departments or not, I'm not even sure. So it'd be some sort of way of communicating further. You know, we've got all this technology, we've got the internet, we should really be sort of using it and taking advantage of it to other students. And when there is an issue that comes up that you
feel like it's just hitting a brick wall, then people need to be able to take a stand. So if something comes into my inbox and it's something that I'm able to do something about, I am willing to put pressure on departments to take a stand for it. But that's going to be really challenging when so many voices are being lost. But yeah, it would be through trying to take an evidence-based approach and listen.
Thank you. And Ariana?
Yeah, shocking. But I do think it does point to a issue of lack of collaboration and a disconnect between institution and student, as I brought up earlier. Lack of collaboration between the academic reps. I'm sure you didn't realise that everyone got the same amount of printing money until you had those conversations with people from other departments. And I think it would be a lot more powerful if we all stood as students together, cross-department, to advocate for what we need to the institution. I think the institution should see us as I brought up earlier, we are paying for an education, and it's like they forgot completely to do the market research part of it and actually know what we need and what we need to thrive as students and to get them the top 10 awards and to make sure that they have a high percentage on that Guardian list. So yeah, basically I think we just need more collaboration between departments as academic reps, and to remind the university that we need to be prioritised if they also want to look good.
Thank you. Any more questions from the floor? We'll come down here first. Please, Frank.
Hiya. So obviously a lot of the talk with CTP has been it's a cost-cutting measure, and sort of looking at long-term, the uni wants to make more money. For our masters, out of the unis who are near ranked to us, we're one of the cheapest by far. I think here to do an MC Finance for me, it's 16k. UCL, I'm paying 50. So the difference is massive. Obviously, the big concern is I want to do a master's here. Next year, suddenly the uni can announce that they're going to raise the cost of the masters. And that would massively derail my plans. I won't be able to afford it, frankly. So what would be your guys' ideas, sort of sure there's more communication with students around where postgraduate costs are going, if they're going to be raised, maybe, you know, we have to get told in advance. What would be your guys' ideas on that?
Ariana first.
Yeah, so I think it comes to back to transparency. When courses are announced, they should also have the knowledge of how much a course costs alongside it. And the affordability of postgraduate degrees should not be sacrificed in the name of, you know, saving a bit of money, seeming as that's already a step that the university has taken with CTP. Yeah, it would just be a case of making sure that master's students know, pushing for the university to offer more scholarships and grants, especially for alumni students who are going to be staying on at Lancaster University. I know there's a 10%, but considering how much more they may be raising the prices to, if they want to reflect other universities that are within their realm and the tables, that is definitely something that should be brought up, and I'd be willing to brought up after talking to PG Board and the academic reps for the master's students.
Thank you. We'll go to Liz.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So I do think the postgraduate and is also the finances of it is a little bit of a blind spot for me, and something that I would definitely have to learn a lot more about quite quickly coming into the role. I think, again, a lot of this comes back to transparency and communication. We've seen these problems. So it would just be making sure that they are able to let people know in advance and giving people the information that they need. Additionally, I believe there is a discount on masters if you are already a Lancaster alumni. So whether or not that would be something that would also factor in it to make it accessible for Lancaster alumni would also be something that they would need to be more transparent on as well. Yeah.
Thank you. You?
Yeah, it's crucial. I'm going to take a little bit of a break from the other two here. I wouldn't see it as much of a transparency issue. It's a business issue for them. They don't know how much things are going to cost until fairly shortly. They don't know the turnout, and that amount of risk is difficult for them. So what I'd be wanting is, with CTP, we have splitting the exam period into two, essentially. So the summer exam period would be worth half what it is now. There are scholarships available not only for people who have done their undergraduate here, but also for people who have high achieving, who've been getting firsts and things of that nature, which other students that the university really wants to be attracting back. At this current point, people I know, not only through the work at academic reps, but just my friends, have been talking about how they wanted to sign on for the masters, but they didn't know if they were going to be eligible for, if they were going to achieve a first, and they weren't going to, so they wouldn't be able to afford it. So what I'd be wanting for that is for the university to make a judgment call on, okay, you've had your second year, you've had the first exam period of your third year, you're achieving a first here, cool, you can have that scholarship. With that, it'll mean you can get housing sorted quicker, you can get bills sorted quicker, you can make sure you keep jobs or get jobs. That level of planning and that level of security is something that's going to work well for both the student who's able to guarantee the scholarship they're going to receive, get houses cheaper, and be able to live cheaper, and it will work for the uni. You'll be able to more accurately predict what they'll be taking, what the course that they'll be able to more accurately stage how busy this course will be, what they need to provide, and with that, they're going to be a lot happier, taking on a bit more of the risk. So, yeah, they're not going to be risking losing money on a course. That's academics in this country is run as a business. As much as I disagree with it, I'm not going to be able to change that. That's got to be how I look at the solutions. Because as much as I'd love for it not to be a business, it is.
Thanks, Ewan. Okay, one more question from the floor. Go to the back there, Frank.
Hi, it's me again. So I have questions just for like the individual candidates. Is that all right?
Yep.
So starting with Liz, if that's okay. So you mentioned in your manifesto that you want to both develop flexible timetabling options for part-time jobs and also diversify assessment types and prioritize employability skills. However, my only question is, some courses and some modules are quite tightly packed, so to speak, with content as it is. And do you think this is going to be a difficult balance? And how do you aim to both get in the course content that is already there, whilst also trying to make this these timetabling options and these employability skills work with the module without sacrificing content?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. So I do think that CTP is a good opportunity to diversify assessment types. So with that, it depends on the context of the module. So for example, I had a module that was 100% essay or 100% coursework, and it was 2 separate essays that I had to write, and I think one of those essays was a great opportunity to have something, making a report about certain things, or sort of doing something that's more employable as a skill, as opposed to just writing an essay. So it would really be context heavy of the module. When it comes to developing flexible timetable options, I think that is the big question that arises, is if you can't make it available to every single student of every single course, but you can make it available to some, do you still allow them to access that? And that is a bit of a moral form, really. But, if you can make something more accessible for some people, why not try?
Thank you. Ewan next. So in one of your other priorities that you mentioned, you talked about working with the Liberation and Campaigns officers and forums. From my personal experience, I was on the executive committee for the LGBTQ+ forum, and at times there was quite a lot of workload, especially when there was only 4 of us running the forum. How do you intend to both support the people running the forums and making sure that they are adequately supported, while also ensuring an efficient running of the forums and ensuring that the LCOs can do their job as best as they can?
So it's a question about how I can support...
How would you help support people running the forums alongside the LCOs? How would you support the LCOs and the people running the forums? Because, as I said, from my experience, at times it can be quite a big workload.
Okay, so I'm going to split that question into 2, really. So on the primarily of the day-to-day supporting the LCOs, I wouldn't really view that as within my remit. I think there are resources, if I recall correctly from the paper that I voted on at UA, there are resources and staff time set aside to help them with the system, with things like that, with the campaigning, with the admin, and helping them set up like that. So I think the staff time set aside of that, so I wouldn't really be involved in that. Mm-hmm. How I would be involved and would be listening to them, to the LCOs in all their various guises, would be through their chairpersons. So I'd want them to be able to message me, email me, give me a call and say, can we have a meeting? Because it's another way of getting the student voice filtering through. There will be times where students don't feel comfortable bringing an issue up to their academic rep, or if their academic rep is the issue. They may not feel comfortable bringing up issues of bigotry or sexism or things like that to them, but they'd be much more comfortable bringing it up through another forum, like the LCOs, or in some cases, going over their head straight to me. I think the forums fill a different role to academic reps. They still filter through the student voice, and there will be cases where academic issues and struggles with the academic system are filtered through LCOs. I think the prime example is the PhD board and the new postgrad forums that have been changed. But there are issues that are going to be filtered through there, which are going to be much more efficient than any system that I could set up in tandem. So I wouldn't be trying to set up my own thing to say, oh, I did this. I'd be empowering what already exists and already works, and making sure the leaders of that are listened to.
Thank you. And finally, Ariana. So one of your main priorities is department open days. Do you think this could either bring any logistical or financial challenges to the departments?
It will definitely be a big task to organise. Hence why I kind of wanted to make it also as a task for academic reps to get involved. I feel like there's a lot of academic reps, and a lot of them feel like there's not much to do as an academic rep unless you go on further to become a department and then a faculty rep. So it would definitely be a challenge. That's probably my manifesto point, that it will be the most challenging. But I do think it's possible because I think because of how important it is and the changes that it will make to student experience and to performance as well, it is sort of fundamental, and it will take a lot of direct and it will take a lot of planning and direct communication with different departments and faculties. But I do believe that it will be doable, definitely.
Yeah. And finally, you mentioned about wanting to support Women's Plus students in male-dominated subjects. Do you have any ideas, any methods already that you have planned that you could implement to help this policy and help this issue?
Yes, I do. As I talked about earlier, a little bit of a research period. It would be basically a research into which subjects and modules are more susceptible to face a gender gap, whether that's through enrollment or attendance. I know some modules have like feminism weeks, and from my personal experience, walking in a room and then seeing that half of the students that are normally there aren't there anymore, it just feels like a tick box, like they're checking that they're being inclusive to the bare minimum extent. So it would be a big paper and looking into the research of that, and then finding, then going directly to student groups, so the Women in Business group, Women in STEM group, Feminist Society, being in contact with them, working closely with the Wellbeing Officer as well, because it does cross over into wellbeing, and creating a plan from there through policy research and seeing what other policies have been successful in this realm, and also what the Women Plus students themselves believe would be successful as well, and then going from there. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, that concludes our candidate questions for Education Officer. So thank you to Liz, Ewan and Ariana. A reminder to everybody that voting opens tomorrow at 10 a.m, so make sure to use your democratic right to vote and get out there. So thank you, everybody. Cheers. No worries. Well done, everyone.